Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 554. 554, September 20th, 2018. Thank you so much for tuning in. Awesome comments in the comments section the last couple days. You know, you guys are great. And I appreciate all the links and stuff. I try to look as many of them as I can. There's some really good links out there. And I don't always, just so you know, I do look at the links a lot. I don't always talk about everything that I see in a link because I generally like to get, you know, more than one source on something sometimes. Not that I don't necessarily believe it, but just, you know, for my own benefit, I like to have sometimes a little more than just one story out there floating around. But, you know, it does show up in my radar, and I lock it in my brain, and I look, and I do try to find corroboration on but if it's just like one isolated story or somebody saying something on a 4chan thread or something, I might bring it up if it's in context to what I'm doing, but I'll generally let you know that it's okay. There's not a lot of sources on this, just something somebody's saying or whatever, but it's interesting enough to talk about. But so I do appreciate that. Keep leaving the links, and I'll keep looking at everything, and of course you all can talk about it amongst yourselves as well. So thanks so much for participating in the community. It's awesome to have all you guys, and really appreciate you. What a journey, huh? Can you believe that we're 554 days into this journey? And as I said a couple videos ago, now that we're this far into the journey, we are finally, what I said 2 days ago, we are at the beginning of the end. The beginning of the end. And the beginning starts with this declassification. And this will basically open the floodgates. So this is what I mean by that. Now, the reason that for the past many months I've been saying to people that when this finally happens, that you need to buckle up and prepare, that it's going to be rocky or there's turbulence ahead, and I'll make comments like that. What I mean by that is that the deep state that we're up against, they are not just going to roll over and play dead. And remember, they still control a tremendous amount of power. As I've talked about before, they literally control academia. They control the media. They still have a lot of power within the courts. They still have the deep state deeply embedded in the Department of Justice, the FBI, the State Department. All these other agencies of the government, they're still very deeply entrenched, and they will fight back with everything they got. And as I kind of look at it like it's a situation where you have a wild animal cornered, and he's wounded, and he realizes that it's a life or death situation. You're going to get a very, very nasty fight out of that wounded animal. And that's how I look at it. So, and as I've probably mentioned before, there is nothing that these people will not do to preserve themselves. I mean, self-preservation is a thing that's natural to all of us. You don't even have to work on it; it just kicks in on its own. So these people are going to do everything that they can to try to preserve themselves and keep themselves from being prosecuted or anything else. And everything is on the table. And once all this starts coming out, they're going to get more and more and more dangerous. More and more dangerous. I have no doubt that they have all sorts of plans drawn up. Everything is on the table. And I can tell you that I've sensed for a very long time something that a lot of people I think have known. We know that Sessions was advised of this a long time ago about why he may not want to go after the Clintons or why he may not want to go after the deep state is because they're worried about civil unrest. They're worried about an uprising. They're worried about seeing, American cities burning if they try to hold these people accountable. And I have absolutely no doubt that certainly will be set into motion by Soros and other affiliated groups, which would include the Rotten Reverend Clinton's people, the DNC, the deep staters. They'll be all in. It'll be all for one and one for all, because they're all tied together. They're all connected together. And I fully expect that when these things start happening, to see them resort to the lowest common denominator, to the most ruthless measures possible to try to preserve themselves. They're going to try, first of all, to win the battle in the court of public opinion. They're going to try to make all these allegations and indictments against them to look like it's political, like Trump is some sort of an authoritarian, some sort of a dictator who's using his power as president to go after political enemies. and they're going to try to create this crisis in the country. These people are willing to destroy the country to save their butts. Do not put it past them. I absolutely guarantee you this is going to happen. There's nothing that the rotten Reverend Clinton and her pals would like to see once those indictments come down against her, and she'll be calling for it in a very, maybe not in a direct way, but there'll be her and other people around her in various ways, while at the same time, behind the scenes, they will be actively instigating all of this. They're going to try to cause riots in major cities all across the country. They're going to appeal to people to rise up, to come out, to get in the streets, which will lead to all sorts of property destruction, violence. At some point, you may have to actually call in the National Guard. And then what happens then? What happens when the shots start being fired and there starts being Americans, crazy people who join this particular effort who end up being killed or wounded in this battle, because it will literally turn the country into a war zone. When I say buckle up, that's what I'm talking about. I hope it doesn't go there. I hope that there's enough sane people that realize that we are simply getting the truth coming out. There will be those, though, across the country, probably millions of them, who just don't know any better, who are in fact being paid to participate in these things and organize these types of things, and they will go out and they will start uprisings and all sorts of things and such. They'll try to create chaos. They'll try to turn this country into Venezuela if they possibly can. They will do anything: political turmoil, assassinations, you name it. Everything is on the table, because for them, everything is on the table. Everything. This is a death match. It's a struggle to the end, my friends. This is not this is not patty cake. This is war. This is war. And you can expect the tactics of war to be applied. This will be an unconventional war. It's like the final battle. It's like the political Armageddon, the final showdown, however you want to describe it. But I can assure you that as we move farther through this process, and the perps, the criminals involved in the deep state coup, are going to resort to the most drastic measures, the most violent tactics, and they will literally put the security of the country at risk. They'll try to turn this country upside down and inside out, and try to turn it into a sort of thing where they try to make it a political situation of left versus right, of Trump, the authoritarian, trying to destroy the country, destroy the Constitution. This is exactly the way that they're going to play this game. They're going to pull out all the stops. They'll hold back nothing. Everything is on the table, and we just have to stay vigilant. We must persevere. We must bring them to justice, regardless of the consequences of it all. You've heard the old phrase, if you're going to make an omelet, you have to break a few eggs. And my friends, we're going to cook up a whole bunch of omelets, and we're going to break a whole bunch of eggs. So as we move forward with the process, prepare yourself for what's coming over the next probably 1 to 3 years as this process plays itself out, and expect anything, be prepared for anything, and don't underestimate the deep state that we're going after. Remember, this is a global criminal network. A global criminal network with their tentacles in everything. They still control a lot of levers of power and influence in the country. This is not going to be an easy fight. Ultimately, the facts and a court of law should decide the fate of the perpetrators. And that's how they will attempt to carry it out this way. But expect the perpetrators to pull out all the stops, to do everything they possibly can to avoid having to pay for their crimes. Buckle up. It's going to get rough. A lot of turbulence coming ahead. We all just have to stick together and persevere, and not let them bully us into getting justice for the president and for the country. Stay strong. I'll be with you every step of the way, my friends. Every step of the way. I've seen this before. I have seen this before. Karen Monahan. Karen Monahan is the victim of Keith Ellison, the deputy, the second guy at the DNC, the token black man at the DNC. She is now saying that there needs to be hearings for her case. And she's right. There needs to be an investigation. And she's right. She did go to the doctor on two occasions, and she's posted those pics on social media. She's posted the documents from her physician showing exactly what she went to him for and what his findings are. They're right there. You can read them. She's not hiding behind anything. She's not just throwing Molotov cocktails from the shadows of an alley. She's very public about it. She is now going on social media and saying that she has been smeared, threatened, and isolated by the Democratic Party. Keep in mind, she was a Democratic Party operative and a leader in the environmental wacko movement. There are tapes, videotapes. There's testimony from her son. And in fact, I think she has 2 sons. So there's overwhelming evidence of Karen Monahan being the victim, and she actually has evidence, and it didn't happen 37 years ago. You know, I wish that the Republican Party would hire me, or the Trump administration would hire me to run their political operations for them, because here's what I would do. We want to go back 36 years, eh? I would go back about 30, 35 years to every Democrat, and you don't have to go back too far, to every Democrat that's been accused of these types of allegations, including Bill Clinton, Harvey Weinstein, and all the rest. Charlie Rose, the whole 9 yards, all have victims. What I would do is I would get together all these victims. I would have a major event where I would have them come out and make a public statement that they want to be heard, that they want their day in front of the Senate to talk about the crimes that have been committed against them. Juanita Broderick should have a seat at that table. Don't you think we need to hear Juanita Broderick's story? That wasn't 3 decades ago, and she's got plenty of evidence and witnesses. Paula Jones, Slick Willie wrote her a check for $875,000. And how about the names of all the members of Congress who've had suits filed against them? They even have their own slush fund in Congress to pay these people off. How about we expose the members of Congress who've had to pay these settlements to women who've accused them? How about we go back and dig up and dredge up 30 years of all the allegations against Democrat members of Congress? How about we bring all their victims together to demand that they get their day in the Senate to talk about the crimes committed against them? How about every time a Democrat in the future decides to put up an appointee for the Supreme Court, that we drag someone out from under a rock from 30 years ago and let them make some baseless, unprovable allegations against their Supreme Court pick? Run them out of town. Then they can bring in the next one, and we'll bring up another one, and another one, and another one. We can just keep doing this all day long. In other words, I would play the same game they're playing with me, but I would hit them back twice as hard, 10 times as hard. I'd ram it right down their throat. There should be a demand right now. In fact, I would, if I were in charge of this, in fact, this is exactly what Republicans on that Senate committee should do. On that Senate Judicial Committee, what they should do is say, yes, we've gone ahead and offered this accuser of Mr. Kavanaugh, Judge Kavanaugh, to come in and tell her story, but she didn't make it. But since we went ahead and made the time, I thought we would go ahead and hear from Karen Monahan, who has her own story to tell. She's got some documents. She's got some video evidence. She's got some other personal references of people she told this to. She's got many social media posts. She's got 2 documents from her physician. Why don't we hear from Karen Monahan in the time that was actually allotted for the accuser of Judge Kavanaugh, why don't we go ahead and let Karen Monahan tell us about what has happened to her? Because really, if we're here just to get to the bottom and to explore the things that are being done to women and how they're being victimized, the actual person who claims that we're a victim, we set some time aside for her today, but she didn't show up. But since we went ahead and set aside the time, we do have another victim right here, Karen Monahan. So we thought we would invite Karen Monahan with all her documents and evidence and witnesses to come in today and talk to the Senate committee. And then when she's done, Judge Kavanaugh can tell us what he thinks about all of this. That's what I would do if I were running that committee right now. If this accuser doesn't show up, I'd bring in Karen Monahan. It's exactly what I would do, but that's just me. I'm kind of crazy. And of course, we had the Rotten Reverend Clinton on Rachel Madcow. And you can see that the Rotten Reverend Clinton is clearly pretty nervous because she is going to be indicted for her crimes. She's essentially trying to, again, stir the pot and provoke violence. She's calling Trump an authoritarian, talking about, oh, he's doing all this horrible stuff. None of it is true, of course. She looks like a damn fool. She looks like a damn fool. She doesn't know when to get off the stage. She just doesn't know. But I'm glad that she's out there. And I hope she does some more appearances on MSNBC and CNN. And I hope she writes op-eds in the New York Times. I hope she campaigns with everybody across the country. Most of them won't have her, but I hope she maybe run on stage or something. Who knows? The more of the Rotten Reverend Clinton that we have out there between now and the midterms, the better off we are. Because she is flat out toxic. The Rotten Reverend Clinton is toxic to the Democratic Party. And they realize it. Of course, she was sporting her classic Chairman Mao pantsuit, all wrapped up, despite the fact it's probably 90 degrees and humid where she was. She's got to wrap herself up. God knows what she's got going on. Colostomy bags, back braces, ankle braces. Soon she'll have an ankle bracelet, but she's got a lot of other issues going on. She obviously has mental issues, as I've explained before. I spent one video one night where I laid out that she meets all the criteria, the clinical definition of a she's not a psycho. I forget now exactly what the clinical term is, but she's nuts. She's nuts. But I hope she stays out there and keeps talking. I surely hope she does. The New Yorker, June 7th, 2017. James Comey. It's not a very flattering article, but there's an article in the New Yorker from June 7th of 2017, not very flattering, but in that article he said that when he was in his 20s, James Comey, that he was both a communist and a Reaganite. Now you have to be something wrong with you to have been a communist and a Reaganite at the same time, or in the same period. I mean, you couldn't get any more different than Reagan and a communist. But James Comey, J. Edgar Comey says that that's the case, that when he was in his 20s, that he, J. Edgar Comey, was both a communist and a Reaganite. That shows you there's something seriously wrong with this dude. He's going to jail too, by the way. Charles Grassley is now saying he will not delay the hearing. Good. He says show up on Monday or pound sand, which is exactly the right course of action, other than the fact that I would bring in Karen Monahan to take this person's place. And we would get to hear from a real victim. We have another classmate identified as PJ, who has now come out and saying that he was not there and has no knowledge of the event. His name is Patrick Smythe. He's referred to in this this letter as PJ. So here's another one. So now we have Kavanaugh. We have this other guy, Mark Judge, who's a writer. We now have the third guy, this PJ, this Patrick Smythe. That's 3 of the 4 men who are alleged to have been there that night, now denying it. And there's still a woman out there that we don't know who she is, and there's another guy out there. Maybe they'll come forward and say the same. But the story is breaking down, and as I told you, The fact that she, after a lawyer said, oh yeah, she come and testify, now she says she's not, that did it right there. That did it right there. Done. This political stunt, as I told you, is going to backfire big time. And it's going to have a major impact on these races coming up. There's a lot of Democrats in tough battles right now. Some of them in red states, or some of them in areas where it's blue, but it's a very tight, especially now that we see more Latinos and blacks moving toward Trump, votes that they could normally count on that they can't count on now. They're going to lose some there. And now you have a lot of people, normal people, even normal Democrats watching this, joining the walk away movement. They see what a shit show it is. And this here is going to make the job of a lot of Democrats trying to get elected in close races much more difficult. Congratulations, Senator Turn In Your Guns, Mr. and Mrs. America Feinstein, and all your cronies. Congratulations, and thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. Many of you have already seen the second Project Veritas video, where they now have another woman, which we've seen this woman before. I think she was one of the people who ran Sarah Sanders' family out of that little restaurant that's now just about out of business in Virginia. She was also went after some lobbyists, and it appears that she got his information illegally. And there's this other woman, this other young woman from the Health and Human Services, talking about how she does various manipulations within the deep state. So the Project Veritas, there's several more, quite a few more videos to come, and I expect that, as is usually the case with Project Veritas, they get worse and worse as they go. So you may want to take a look at the second Project Veritas video. It's definitely worth watching. 14 minutes long, I believe. We're learning now that the attorney for the accuser of Judge Kavanaugh is, of course, Deborah Katz. We now know that she was a fundraiser for the Rotten Reverend Clinton. We knew she was a donator to Obama and the Rotten Reverend, but now we find out that she was actually a fundraiser for the Rotten Reverend Clinton. And just as Lindsey Graham says, who is paying for the attorney for the accuser? Do you think maybe the Rotten Reverend Clinton might be behind some of that? Or groups connected to her? I'd say it's very likely. Papadopoulos wants an investigation of Western intelligence agents that contacted him in 2016 during the campaign. He wants them to look into Halper, Downer, Erica Thompson, who is a Australian intelligence person, Azar Turk, who's Israeli intelligence. She lined up that other meeting. He says that Obama, Brennan, Clapper, and the UK government knew everything about what was going on. He's laying out a plot. He surely is, and he wants to testify to Congress. Good for you, Papadopoulos. Go tell us everything you know. Everything. Just get it out. Because a lot of us are interested in hearing more about it. And yes, there should be an investigation into all of these perps who are involved in the deep state coup. Unbelievable special election last night in Texas. It's a state election, state house election, but it's still an extraordinary thing that happened last night. We have this Republican named Pete Flores. He won the Senate seat, the state Senate seat in District 19 in Texas in a special election. This is a district that has not seen a Republican hold that seat since 1879. 139 years since a Republican has held that seat. This is in San Antonio, Texas. And he won pretty handily. And the reason why? High Republican turnout. This race, unbelievable. The Rotten Reverend Clinton won that district by 12% in 2016. But more unbelievable, and the number that just scared the hell out of the Democrats and backs up exactly what I've been saying for a long time now, 73% of this particular voting district is minorities, mostly Latino. It's an overwhelming Latino and black community. First time in 139 years, since 1879, that seat is now held by a Republican, defeating the Democrat. There ain't no blue wave, that's for sure. Like I said before, there may be a red typhoon or red tsunami coming. How deep is the deep state? Many of you have heard this story. If you haven't, listen close. Listen very, very closely. This is from the Last Refuge in the Gateway Pundit. Democrats on the Gang of Eight, which of course would be Adam Bug-Eyeful Schiff, Nazi Piglosi, Senator Warner, who's involved with his eyeballs in the plot, and Chuck the Cuck Schumer, sent a letter to DNI Coates, Ray and Rodenstein, all three of them, telling them to refuse Trump's order to declassify documents regarding the Russia investigation. In the letter, these Democrats also disclose that they have coordinated with Coates, Ray, and Rodenstein to withhold information from Trump behind his back. And they tell us this in the letter. Here's a direct quote from the letter. On June the 27th, 2018, this would be Pelosi, Schumer, Warner, and Schiff. That's who we is. We wrote again to memorialize the verbal assurance you provided us that the Department of Justice and the FBI would not provide the White House any of the president's attorneys with access to sensitive information. Briefed to a small group of designated members. Let me read that again. We wrote again to memorialize the verbal assurance you provided us that the DOJ and the FBI would not provide the White House or any of the president's attorneys with access to sensitive information, briefed to a small group of designated members. Then, on July 12th, 2018, we also wrote DIA Coates to express alarm that this information was being made broadly available within the Congress in direct contravention of your assurances. Wow. So, we have just now outed 7 more coup plotters, and they apparently involve the DNI, Coates, Ray, and Rodenstein. Have been working and having meetings and talking to and receiving letters from, having commerce with these individuals to go behind the back of the president to keep from him information that he is legally allowed to have and see and review. They've been working behind his back as part of the plot. They should all resign. And Pelosi, Warner, Schumer, and all the rest should be tried for treason. I'm sure Trump will get wind of this letter, and he's not going to like it, I can assure you of that. This letter proves corruption, manipulative intent, and gross intelligence abuses. Let me say that again. These letters that I just read to you prove corruption, manipulative intent, and gross intelligence abuses. This in itself is a criminal conspiracy against the president. Unbelievable. Now, let's get back to this political stunt, which I told you would fail badly, and now it has. This stunt has failed badly because now we have even Corker, Susan Collins, and Jeff Flake have now said, you know what, if this accuser doesn't show up on Monday, we should just have the vote. And essentially they're all basically giving the impression that they'll vote to confirm. When you lose Flake, Corker, and Collins in this political stunt, you really have spit the bit. That's why we know it's a complete disaster and has backfired badly. And as I said before, how pissed off are those Democrats running in tight races? They have to be really angry right now. What a stunt. I mean, this stunt could deliver a huge turn for the midterm elections. This could be a major issue driving the midterm elections. It could really result in the Democrats losing more seats. They could actually lose seats in the House because of this. This political stunt is going to be really, it's going to matter, believe me. Now, why is this alleged so-called victim not willing to testify under oath? It's because she doesn't want to have to answer questions. Because she knows that she will be uncovered. And making false allegations under oath, of course, is lying under oath, but she also sets her up for a lawsuit by Mr. Kavanaugh. Judge Kavanaugh could sue her for slander. Slander. And there should be an investigation into her. Oh yes, that's right, into her. And exactly who is paying her. Does she have media people? Does she have other money flowing into her? Does she have other people backing and supporting her? Someone put her up to this? Who all is involved in this? There's a lot of those types of questions that does need to be investigated. That's what I would be investigating if I were the FBI. But she doesn't want to answer other questions. Here's a few just off the top of my head. Here's some questions for you if she were sitting in front of me. How did you come to meet or know Judge Kavanaugh? Did you know Judge Kavanaugh from school or from somewhere else? What did you and Judge Kavanaugh talk about before you went to the bedroom? If you both were drunk, how did you both get up the stairs? Who else was there? Name them, including this other girl. Who was she? You say that you were 15 at the time that you were at this party, and you say that you were drinking at 15. Who got you that alcohol? Who gave you the alcohol, provided you with the alcohol that you admit to being drinking that night? Where did you get the alcohol? How did you get to the house where this party was? You're 15. I assume that you did not drive there. I'm not sure if you walked there. So how did you get there? And how did you get home? Who brought you home? Obviously, you're too young to drive, so you couldn't have driven home either. Did someone drive you home? If so, who? Did you tell your parents that you were going to this party? Or did you lie? That's just a few questions I would ask. Devin Nunes says the declassified documents will expose the insurance policy. Yeah, and a lot more. That's why they're desperate that it not come out. But it's coming out. I certainly hope all these people have good insurance policies. They're going to need them. Well, Juanita Broderick couldn't miss this opportunity, as you might assume, to destroy the rotten Reverend Clinton. After the rotten Reverend Clinton went on MSNBC with Rachel Madcow and started beating up on Judge Kavanaugh and defending the accuser, which is really a flip for the rotten Reverend Clinton, because normally Hillary Clinton sends out her union thugs to intimidate and terrorize the victims of the sexual assaults of her husband and some of his friends. So Juanita Broderick, she gets on Hillary's Facebook and posts a piece of the interview and then puts, "The irony. Hillary Rotten Clinton will go down in history as the most deceitful and dishonest villain in history." You're absolutely right, Juanita. Why don't you come in on Monday and tell us your story? Then in response to that, we have Laura Ingraham responding to Juanita Broderick saying, Hillary's now on MSNBC talking about the need for an FBI investigation of Ford's 36-year-old sexual assault allegation against Kavanaugh. I wonder if Juanita Broderick is listening. Yeah, she was listening. Again, Juanita Broderick comments again and says, if you want the FBI to go back that far, Hillary, then let's investigate my rape allegations against Bill Clinton. This too seems only fair, and you don't have to go back 36 years to find that one. Very well done, Juanita Broderick. And yes, we do need to get to the bottom of that rape. Didn't happen 36 years ago. Pretty long ago, but regardless, now that they're telling us that it's okay to go back and investigate these things, going back 36 years, let's go back 36 years. There'll be hundreds of Bill Clinton's victims and Hillary's. Finally, Trump is still slamming Jeff Sessions. He tweeted out today, he said, well, I didn't tweet, he said it. He says, I don't have an attorney general. It's very sad. So, it just continues to be very interesting what's going on, the play between Sessions and Trump. I don't know what's going on. We'll continue to watch it, but it continues to be entertaining. And very mysterious, by the way. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow. Bye.